Well, hi again. Probably about 4 or 5 months since I did one of these last. And in the main, that's been because unexpectedly, for me, my stepmother of 38 years passed away mid-June. And and it's taken me best part of 2 months and more to sort out her personal financial possessions and things of that kind. And quite honestly, I'm still struggling to get over the fact that it's all happened. It's only after her passing I realised I knew her more than I knew my mother, because my mother died when she was in her mid-late 50s and I was only about 32, 33 years of age at the time. But be that as it may, I'm now trying to emerge in terms of all this. Being on social media, easier to do that than to do videoing, because videoing needs some thought. But we were in the same position as when I last spoke in March. Nothing other than hype, spin, pretense. Things are making progress. We're moving along, trust me approach from Mrs. May. Labour unsure, well, not just unsure, lost in many, many ways. I think the majority of Labour people, the party membership, know exactly what they want. They want to have a second vote, a people's vote, by about 80% of them. They want to stay in the customs union. They want to stay in the single market, 85% of them. But Corbyn, the old Eurosceptic, back from the late 70s, early 80s, with MacDonald and a few of the union barons, they're back in those days. And that's what it's all about. Back in those days. The Tory party from the 60s always had problems with, shall we look towards America or shall we look towards Europe? And de Gaulle knew that, President Charles de Gaulle. That's why he wasn't happy with us joining in the first place. Made it difficult for us to join, because he knew that our approach was towards America. Why on earth we want to do that, I don't know. In the current situation, but there we go, we leave that on one side. That's for another story. So you've had this tug of war going on. Are we going to move towards America, deregulation, freer approach, or are we going to be part of the European scene? Now, whatever he was saying, no one was bothering much until Cameron, obviously for internal party reasons, decided let's have a referendum. There was no big demand for a referendum. There wasn't thumping at the doors and saying, but the Eurosceptics in the Tory party, as they'd been since the 70s, never accepted the 75 referendum, and the referendum party of the 90s, their UKIP, and all that, it all bubbled up and Cameron succumbed. Where is he now, by the way? The man that has caused this chaos, who misunderstood the whole scene, terrible campaign, has done a flit, is gone. And as I said back in 2015, he will go down as the guy that probably caused us to come out of Europe, and we'll see the breakup of the United Kingdom, because make no mistake about it. If Brexit happens, the UK Union as you know it today will not be like this in 10 years' time. Whether in Scotland or in Ireland. More of a question mark about Wales, but I'm hoping that the Welsh people as well won't be happy with being an annex of England, but I digress. So we are in this cul-de-sac of a situation where the Tory party have no clue what they're doing. The Labour Party want to oppose in all seriousness, but the leadership is holding back. Everyone is afraid. I have never known a period where politicians are so weak. I've never known a period where you have leaders who are just afraid to say it as it is. The reality is we are going to be weaker outside Europe. The reality is we are going to have less influence in the world outside Europe. The reality is that the trading we do now will be more difficult outside the EU. And they talk of global Britain. Well, we're already global Britain. We trade with 100 countries, 70 of them linked with EU trade agreements. And that needs resolving. And we're at this situation when and where David Davis said, don't worry, it'll all be sorted out. By March 2019, we'll be ready to trade with Germany. We will have done deals with Germany. Fox said, creating new deals will be the easiest thing in the history of mankind. On the other hand, Mrs. May said, the thought of leaving the single market and the customs union in Europe is mad. Because during the referendums, he said, we export more to Ireland than we do to China, more to Belgium than we do to India, 3 times more to Sweden than we do to Brazil. What's going on? Now, we are reaching a stage when Parliament must take over. We are reaching a stage when members of Parliament, and 400 of them were Remainers, 400 did not believe in leaving the EU. And I'm quite sure in their heart of hearts, that's what they believe now. But they're so afraid of that vote 2.25 years ago. They are not mandated. They are not delegates. They're not instructed. They are there to form their judgment, their best judgment for the good of the country, for the good of the various parts of the United Kingdom. That's what they're there for. Not to worry about what happened 2.5 years ago. The people's will or the peoples have spoken. People speak all the time. People change their minds all the time. The democracy did not end 2.5 years ago. Who said that? David Davis. If democracy can't change its mind, it ceases to be a democracy. What did Farage say? If it's a 52-48 outcome, which it was, it's unfinished business. What did Rees-Mogg say? It might well be a good idea, this is a few years ago, mind, that when the facts are known, we go back to the people again. David Davis says it is futile to have a referendum until all the facts are presented. And that's what the people's vote is about. That's what the people's march is about. People want to have a right to think again. People want to have the democratic right, knowing what the facts might be at the end before leaving, whether it is the most sensible thing to leave or not. We can argue about the economics, although the case is quite clear. Leaving Europe is damaging to the regions and nations and the communities of Britain, especially those areas that voted to leave in the north of England and the southwest, and even in Wales, in the valleys of Wales. It's the worst thing that can happen. But I don't blame people for voting the way they did, mind. For 30, 40 years they've been neglected. Communities have been neglected because the centre, in terms of London and the southeast, and it's gradually happening in Wales, in Cardiff, the disadvantaged areas, the left behind areas. They saw their chance and they made their statement, and I don't blame them. But I think they're beginning to realise it is time to rethink. So Parliament needs to take back control. It's a sovereign Parliament. Parliament is never instructed. It was an advisory referendum. I respect that referendum, but it was a decision taken on a given day. It is not sacrosanct. It is not the end of the issue. We need to decide rationally with the facts in front of us all as to what is the best, because it matters not just to this generation, it matters to future generations, your grandchildren, my grandchildren, and what we need are members of Parliament with backbone. What we need are members of Parliament, as Edmund Burke and Churchill quite rightly said. You are there to decide what's best for the country and not for your party. And we need to get there. And we need to get that there very soon. Okay.